Before the world had kings, before nations were carved from the earth, before temples rose in stone, there was a gate. Not a gate of wood or iron, but a gate between worlds. It sounds like science fiction, but ancient civilizations across the globe recorded the same mysterious idea, that the universe was layered, that somewhere between heaven and earth existed portals where realms overlapped. The Bible calls them something strange. Not portals, not doorways, but gates. Genesis speaks of them. The prophets hint at them. And in one terrifying moment in human history, a man named Jacob saw one. He was a fugitive, fleeing into the wilderness alone. Night fell, the stars stretching endlessly above him. And somewhere in the darkness of that desert, he slept. Then the vision came. A ladder, a stairway, reaching from the dusty ground all the way into the heavens. And on it, angels were ascending and descending. Traffic between worlds. When Jacob awoke, trembling, he whispered something that would echo through history. "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." Then he said something even stranger. "This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." A gate. Not a metaphor, not just poetry, but a physical location where heaven touched earth. The ancients believed there were many such places. Sacred mountains, ancient temples, forbidden ruins. Places where the barrier between realms grew thin. But Scripture warns of something darker. Because not all gates lead upward. Some open downward. Long before the Great Flood, something happened. Genesis records it in just a few shocking verses, but those verses may describe one of the most disturbing events in all of human history. It says, "The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives of all they chose." Then, the text reveals the terrifying consequence. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. Giants, hybrid beings, creatures born from the unnatural union of heaven and earth. But how did they even get here? How did these divine beings cross into the human world in the first place? Ancient Jewish writings, preserved in the Book of Enoch, give a chilling answer. They descended through a gateway, specifically on Mount Hermon. According to this ancient text, 200 of these beings, called the Watchers, descended through a gate between realms and made an oath on that mountain. An oath that would change the fate of humanity forever. They taught forbidden knowledge, the art of making weapons, sorcery, the manipulation of the earth itself. And the result was chaos. Violence filled the world. Civilizations collapsed. The corruption of humanity spread like a plague. So God made a decision. The flood. It wasn't just to cleanse the earth of violence, but to close the gates that had allowed these beings to enter. For thousands of years after that cataclysm, those gates remained silent, sealed, guarded, forgotten, or so humanity believed. Ancient cultures all over the world told stories of something terrifying. Not gates to heaven, but gates beneath the earth. The Greeks called it Hades. The Hebrews called it Sheol. The Romans called it the underworld. But in Scripture, there is an even darker name, the abyss, a prison for very specific, very dangerous spiritual beings. Think about it. In the Gospel accounts, when Jesus encountered the demon-possessed man of the Gadarenes, the demons begged him something strange. They pleaded, "Do not send us into the abyss." Why would they fear one place so desperately? Because it is a place where rebellious spirits are confined, locked behind gates. And according to the book of Revelation, those gates will not remain closed forever. The Apostle John writes of a terrifying moment in the future. A star falls from heaven, but this star isn't a rock. It's a being. And John says, to him was given the key to the shaft of the abyss, a key to a gate. When that gate opens, smoke pours out like a volcanic eruption, and from that darkness emerge creatures so bizarre that John struggles to even describe them. Locust-like beings with human faces, lion's teeth, and scorpion tails. Creatures from a realm humanity was never meant to see. The gate had been opened. Now, many scholars believe the Watchers, those fallen angels, were completely destroyed by the flood. But ancient texts suggest something a bit more complicated. It seems their physical bodies perished, but their spirits, the spirits of their giant offspring the Nephilim, did not die. They remained, becoming what Scripture often calls unclaimed spirits, wandering, searching, influencing. And the fallen Watchers themselves? They were imprisoned, bound in darkness until the day of judgment. The book of Jude confirms this, saying, "The angels who did not keep their proper domain, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness." But the prophecy continues. Those chains are temporary, and the gates holding them may not stay closed forever. For thousands of years, these warnings sounded like myth, like ancient folklore. But something strange has begun happening in our modern world. Scientists studying the Earth's magnetic field have noticed bizarre fluctuations, strange anomalies in certain regions where electromagnetic behavior just goes wild. In ancient folklore, these areas were called thin places, locations where the barrier between worlds seemed fragile. Mountains, deserts, ancient ruins. Places where civilizations built temples for thousands of years. Were they worshipping there? Or were they guarding something? Even modern governments quietly study such locations. High-energy experiments, particle collisions, attempts to understand the very fabric of reality. Some physicists even speculate about dimensional membranes barriers, separating parallel realms. The Bible described these barriers thousands of years ago. It just called them gates. And the final prophecy suggests something truly alarming. The gates will open again. In the book of Revelation, multiple gates appear, not just one. The abyss opens, yes, but something else happens later. Another prison breaks. John writes, "And the 4 angels bound at the great river Euphrates were released." These beings had been held back, restrained for a specific, predetermined moment in time. When they are finally released, war erupts across the earth. Armies numbering in the hundreds of millions appear. Civilization begins to collapse. Chaos spreads. The boundary between the spiritual and physical worlds begins to dissolve. During this final period, known as the tribulation, supernatural events increase dramatically. Signs in the sky, strange creatures, demonic manifestations. The gates are opening, one by one. But here's the paradox in the prophecy. The opening of these gates is terrifying, yes, but it is also necessary. Because another gate is going to open, the greatest gate of all. John describes it vividly in Revelation. Heaven opened, and a rider appears on a white horse. His name is Faithful and True. The King returns, Christ himself. When that final gate opens, it will not release chaos. It will end it. The gates of darkness will fall. The abyss will be sealed forever. And the rebellion that began with the forbidden's descent onto a mountaintop before the flood will finally come to its end. Thanks for watching. If you found this fascinating, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of the ancient world. See you next time.